Welcome folks to Toowoomba Forward. My name's Tim Entwistle and I'm your host for today, and joining me right now is Chris Brameld. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Tim, for having me.
Thank you very much. Could you just start by introducing yourself to the viewers and sharing some of the qualities that you believe will make you an effective counsellor for the next 4 years?
Yeah, so Chris Brameld's my name. I've been a first response police officer for 25 years. I've been living in the Toowoomba Region since 2002, just over 20 years with my wife and 4 children. Through my policing experience, I've worked at Logan, Mount Isa, Toowoomba, Gumbunji, Highfields Police Beat and Highfields Station, as well as the Darling Downs District Vulnerable Persons Unit. Grew up in Logan, went to school in Logan and Brisbane. My parents purchased a 1 acre block in Logan, wanting me to have a bit of a country aspect, as my mother had grown up in Kuya. What can I bring to the council? I can bring someone that's going to challenge the status quo in a respectful manner, as well as someone that can utilise critical decision making that I've developed over my 25 years as a frontline police officer. An example of that is my conscious decision not to utilise call flutes in my marketing. This isn't the first election that is being held in this region, and every time we have it we hear about the visual pollution that they cause and the public outcry in relation to the position of signs. I've listened to that, and then I conducted a bit more research, identified that they're made out of polypropylene. That's a product that doesn't break down in the environment, as well as can only be recycled if it's picked up separately in a separate process.
Yeah.
So that process, I decided not to utilise call flutes. And that sort of thinking process is what I can bring to every decision that we do in council, look at all the positives and negatives and weigh up the best for the community.
Sure, thank you for that. So just talking on that topic of not having your call flutes and not using call flutes in this election, could you tell us more about how you plan to secure the 32,000 votes necessary, and that is 32,000 electors who see your face, recognise you and are willing to vote for you over the next 3 weeks in lieu of having call flutes out?
Yeah, so I'm relying on the fact that a couple of my roles in the police were community roles, both in Gumbunji and Highfields Police Beat. I fulfilled those roles and made sure I was involved heavily with the community. I also conducted a lot of that in my own time as well, realising the importance of being in the community. So I'm relying on the relationships that I've built with those people. I also volunteered to coach sporting teams with my children, and in particular my 3 older children, including rugby union, rugby sevens and netball. Those are both conducted at various clubs and schools. And I'm relying on the fact that a lot of those children are 18 and older and still living in the area, and I have a relationship with them. They understand my work ethic and what I bring. I'm also looking at other measures in relation to Facebook. Both the Chronicle and the Herald have put printed articles on me, and what you've offered today as well.
Yeah, great, thank you. So we just want to talk about the biggest issue that you've been noticing in your travels around the region, around here in Toowoomba City. What is that issue, and what are you going to hope to do to address those issues?
So talking to regional communities, their biggest issue is feeling left out, feeling like the council only look after Toowoomba. And through my research, I did identify on the council webpage in relation to the growth action plans that they initiated in 2015. They did speak to a couple of communities around 2017, and then nothing more has been done.
Sure.
And then they only spoke to a handful, not all of the communities. And that's listed on their website, and it even says that it was last updated on the 19th of January 2024.
Yeah.
So I can see that frustration. So what I would like to do is work with those communities. I acknowledge that some of those plans identify that community members need to do some things to help generate some of the council stuff to come with them. But has council worked alongside those community members to help them get the results they want?
Yeah.
In relation to the Toowoomba, I find that crime is an issue, and I'm open to say that it's not a one organisation solution, and council can assist in reducing crime. And again, through my research, I identified a study over in America where street lighting and how bright it was had a 60% reduction in serious crimes in that area.
Right.
It even went further to check the bordering communities to identify or to ensure that crime wasn't pushed out to those bordering communities.
Yeah.
And it showed a 34% reduction in crime in those bordering communities. So that tells me that if we strategically position bright street lights in particular areas, we can have an impact on crime.
That's great, thank you. That actually conveniently answers the one of the questions that we had about the crime topic and what council has to do. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to switch over to the idea of housing affordability and also the availability of homes to rent. It's a major issue that a lot of people are concerned about. This is one issue that does have state and federal implications, but from a council perspective, what do you think that council should be doing to approve more homes, approve more subdivisions, and what are your thoughts on things like high density living in the CBD?
Look, I believe that we should be looking at high density living, and in particular it's got its place at certain locations. It needs to be positioned in areas where walking is able to be done for people to either work, purchase their food and their goods, so that we're minimising the traffic.
Sure.
But we also have to be able to afford that opportunity for them to be able to park their vehicles, obviously, so car parking spaces are available. So yeah, I'm supportive of that high density living in those specific areas close to the CBD. Look, there's got to be a balance. I respect the issues with affordability in relation to housing, and we need to look at being able to get the approve those subdivisions in the best possible process.
Sure.
And if there's any way we can reduce that red tape, then we should be looking at doing it.
That'll be great. Thank you, Chris. I want to talk about sustainability and responsibly managing the environment. It's top of mind for a lot of ratepayers. But what are your convictions in regards to climate change and whether or not council has a role to play in it?
I certainly believe council has a role to play in it. I'm always an evidence-based person, relying on scientific evidence to back claims, and in particular making sure those evidence and the results aren't just read alone. I think there's an important process to also read how the experiment or the study was carried out and any assumptions that were made, as sometimes that can have an influence on the results.
Sure.
So I'm someone to be very careful and mindful of the results, but once those results are there and substantiate a claim, it's certainly something that we need to look at. I'm a strong believer in a balance. I think we need to keep our trees. We don't want to chop all of them down for subdivisions. And I do that myself. My wife and I purchased 178 acres 2 years ago, just north of Crow's Nest. We're running cattle, pigs, horses and breeding dogs, but we've also set aside approximately 20 acres for our own wildlife reserve.
Yep.
And we've reached out to the koala saving group out at Crow's Nest, as well as, and that group gave us an option to take up an application for tree troughs, which we've undertaken and been successful in. So that example is really that it's about balance.
Yeah.
We can still do the cattle and all that, but we can set aside a little bit for the native wildlife as well.
Sure.
And I think that's got to be brought about by council. It's about balance. We as humans do have to live, and we've got to provide for the humans, but it's about balance and providing good environmentally friendly options there.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Just as a follow-up, in principle, do you support the use of travel restrictions on Toowoomba Region residents as a means to reduce carbon emissions? So, for example, limiting residents' ability to travel outside of their suburb?
No, I wouldn't support that.
No. Okay, thank you. Crime across the Toowoomba region has skyrocketed. Again, you've mentioned this before about lighting and street lighting. Yep. Could we just highlight a little bit more on what you've done in your research and what you've looked at in terms of street lights? But also, could we talk about, from a cultural perspective, what can council do to encourage a culture of safety?
Yep. So there's other avenues too. There's also studies that I identified in the Evidence-Based Policing Journal in relation to the layout of subdivisions and the ease that it is for people to come and go.
Yep.
And one of the things that they did look at was in relation to easements and those walkways between properties, having a gate that the local people had access to. For example, having a pin-coded one rather than a key that the local people would have access to, knew the pin, could get through, restricted those that were coming from the outside, being able to have an easy exit and get away.
Sure.
And they found that had a positive effect on crime. And it's something that we could look at, and the council changes that code every 6 to 12 months, provides that to all the local community people. and then benefits by, if there are those people around there, they identify that it's difficult for them to get away, so they're less likely to go and commit crime there. Obviously there's a responsibility on community as well to maintain their safety. We do see crimes occurring with vehicles that are unlocked and keys left in them, houses that are unlocked. So it's about people looking to take that responsibility on and lock their vehicles and lock their properties. That can have a benefit as well in relation to reducing crime.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I want to talk briefly about the Toowoomba Region's motto, life message, mission statement, if you will. Rich traditions and bold ambitions.
Yep.
Some may be concerned about rich traditions being sacrificed in exchange for bold ambitions, with things like demolishing old tennis courts or demolishing certain buildings that might have some cultural or historical significance in exchange for new buildings that may not have the same level of aesthetic or visual appeal and definitely won't have the same tradition or historical connection. Could you just share some thoughts on maintaining what makes to the Toowoomba region, while also pursuing the future and making sure progress still becomes a major thing that we work towards?
Yep. So for me, moving to Toowoomba, the feel that I got was it was that country lifestyle,
yep,
but close to the big cities of your Brisbane, Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast.
Yes.
And the people that I talk to, that is a lot of what they get. And that feel for me is generated by, you still have your CBD, but on the outskirts you've got your properties with your slightly bigger blocks, room for the kids to run around in,
yep,
tree-lined streets, trees in their backyards. So for me, that's the rich traditions, because when I came to Toowoomba, that's how it made me feel.
Yep.
And I think from speaking to people, that's what they want. Bold ambitions, that is allowing us, in my opinion, to maintain that rich tradition, but still grow and be able to provide jobs for people, provide affordable living for people, and provide a safe and healthy environment for people to live in.
Yeah.
So that's what I see, and that's about subdivisions and higher density living being done in the right locations, a balance. So with subdivisions, we're not chopping down every tree, we're able to maintain and keep appropriate trees, and so that we've got that, having little environmental corridors for wildlife as well in amongst those subdivisions as well.
Yeah, great, thank you for that. I'll finish up with this question. If there was one thing that you could say to electors to secure their vote for you, what would that be?
I'm the one that will challenge the status quo. I will look to question all our decisions to make sure that they are done properly. I will listen, and there's evidence in my campaign with that. I'm not just simply saying it, simply by the choice of the corflutes. I've listened, I've challenged it, looked at it and made that decision. I've done critical decision making for 25 years, and that's what I'll bring to my role as a councillor if I'm elected.
Great. Chris Brameld, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.